Welcome back to another chapter of Message Crawler Video Manual. Today we're going to talk about exporting DAT files out of Message Crawler. So first questions on your mind, why would I export DAT files when I want to be creating RSMF files? Well, there are a few reasons. One is you may want to export a subset of data as a DAT file as a deliverable. So for example, forensics department has exported a DAT file from forensic software, and you only want to find part of the data or zero into part of the data and turn it over to another department or to your client, which you can do. Use Message Crawler to filter that down to a smaller set and export a DAT file. Another reason, you can create a DAT export in order to perform a review as a DAT file. So you can load all the metadata fields from the DAT file into their own corresponding fields in relativity and look at data that way. Now, you don't have to use relativity, of course. You can load this data into concordance, or you can use a CSV export to load this data into Excel and perform some sort of review using Excel, and then only tag specific doc IDs for RSMF conversion. And finally, you can use a DAT file export tool to blank out certain fields based on another condition. So for example, if document was redacted, you can blank out certain metadata fields. This comes up normally during standard productions and not necessarily RSMF conversions. All right, with that out of the way, let's jump to my screen and I'll show you how to export DAT files. What we have here is a DAT file that's been loaded to Message Crawler, and in order to export it, we can navigate to Export DAT File. Pretty simple. However, before we do, we may want to perform some kind of filtering. So for example, if we want to deliver or export only data from conversation 2, we can click on the filter button here, select conversation 2, and we can make a note of how many records we have. And our count is 23. Now we're going to go to export DAT, and now we confirm we do have our 23 records that are ready to export. From here, you can see what fields are going to be exported on the left. We can move them up and down to change order of the fields, as well as we can uncheck certain fields if we don't want them to be included in the DAT file. Here we can choose what kind of delimiters we want to use, concordance or CSV. Those are going to be two most common delimiter types. If you doing an export to somebody's review system, concordance delimiters will work. And if you want to look at the data in Excel, you will just select CSV. If you have a strong preference on encoding, you can adjust it here. UTF usually works just fine. Now, one thing you can do with this tool is split that file into smaller files. You'll do that by clicking this checkbox, split into smaller files, and select how many rows per file you would like to have. This is useful if you have 500,000 messages and you want to export them, for example, 100,000 per DAT file, so that you can separate them out for whatever reason, if you're giving them to different reviewers or running them through a different process or something like that. Just a convenient way of chopping data up into smaller pieces. However, one thing you don't want to happen when you're chopping data up is to break families across multiple DAT files, and therefore you have this option here, do not break on field, and here you can select group identifier. This way Message Crawler will export a little bit more records just to make sure the whole family exports, and then it'll start the next document in the next DAT file. Now you can do the same thing with the conversation identifier. This way conversations aren't split up across multiple DAT files. The next thing I want to do is demonstrate how you can blank out a metadata field based on a condition. For that, we're going to pretend this is a production deliverable. And what we have here, our message type, and we have some other fields, and we have a custodian field. So what we'll do is pretend the message type is field called isRedact or something like that, and we want to blank out custodian. So let's filter for conversation 1 because that's the only one that contains custodians. I'm going to click on close, and we're going to go to export that, and we want to include all the fields. However, we'll say blank out on export field custodian whenever message type equals to message. And we're going to generate export, and we'll call it export. I already have one, just going to override it. And now export complete. So what we should expect whenever the message type is message, this field should be blank. Let's open it up and see if that is true. And it is. Whenever the message type, we blanked out custodian field. So that's something you can do when you have a production and you have redacted documents and the client says, I would like you to redact or blank out from, to, and subject whenever document had any redactions, just to avoid any information making it through metadata that could have been redacted in a document. As you can see, export to DAT file is a pretty simple tool, but I hope you will find it useful in your day-to-day work. Thank you for checking out this video. I will see you guys in the next chapter of Message Crawler Video Manual.